Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Regulatory Voices. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Jessica Duffy. Jessica, thank you for joining the call today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our talk today.
Me too. I think be a great way to start this would be to if you could give everyone a bit of a high level overview of your background, career, and what you're doing currently.
Sounds good. So, I guess starting where I am currently, I am a regulatory affairs manager at a small biotech working on monoclonal antibodies in the inflammation and immunology space. But before that, I had a couple years experience at a small molecule oncology company. And prior to starting my career in regulatory, so I've got about almost 5.5 years. But before that, I did a PhD in computational biosciences, so quite a pivot into regulatory.
Indeed, and that's actually where I wanted to start on the computational biology side. Obviously, a lot of scientists spend years training to become experts in a very specific area, but relatively few understand how broad the pharma industry actually is sometimes. And you've spent years doing the computational biology piece before moving into regulatory, which is a very different career path than most people have. So my first question is kind of the discovery phase. How did you first discover regulatory affairs as a career option?
Yeah, so I didn't find out about regulatory even, existing until I was partway through my graduate studies. And I was really lucky at my graduate school. We had a really, really effective career development center, and they did a really great job, especially for students that were not interested in staying in academia. And so I signed up to work with them on kind of like the career discovery, career exploration activities. And we looked at a lot of different options. Some of the ones that I'd thought about included IP law, tech transfer, administration, either for a graduate school or, industry, and also learned about regulatory affairs. And I hadn't heard of it before, but it just seemed really interesting. And so that's kind of where I first heard about it as an option.
At what point did you kind of realize that academia wasn't necessarily the long term path for you?
I feel like I figured that out pretty early on in my graduate research, maybe even around like the 1 to 1.5 year mark. I just kind of knew that I didn't want to do this forever, didn't want to do a
Mhm.
postdoc or run a lab.
And were there any misconceptions that you had about regulatory before entering it?
Yeah, I guess before I actually started in regulatory, I didn't realize how much like gray area there was. I kind of
Mhm.
assumed it was more black and white, like, oh, the guidances say this, these are the laws, these are the regulations, so this is what you have to do. But after starting in regulatory, I learned that it is a lot of gray area. There's a lot of room for creativity and room for interpretation too.
I think that's spot on. It's one thing that I learned really quickly when I started doing recruitment in a regulatory was I thought regulatory affairs. There's all these regulations. You have to follow all these processes, and you put it all together and you get an approval. And I very quickly learned as well. It's actually a lot more creative, and there's a lot more negotiation and meeting expectations and stakeholder management than I really expected. And from that point on, my appreciation of it kind of evolved as well. So it's funny how everyone always seems to always have the same. Oh wow, there's actually a lot more grey here, and it's a lot more creative than people think it is. Um, but I suppose my follow up to this and kind of concluding the bit about your education side was you mentioned all the other areas you're looking at. What made regulatory more attractive than other industry functions?
Yeah, I think regulatory really stood out to me. There's a lot of like, I guess, quality of life things in regulatory. I think it being more remote friendly than some other options, that's a great perk. It seems like in regulatory, one does kind of progress a little bit faster as far as career development, career progression. So that stood out to me. But as far as why regulatory over some of the other things, I really like how it's a combination of law, business, science, all those things that are really interesting. And you're still kind of close to the science, so that attracted me to it as well.
One thing that I noted on I think our very first introductory call was you said that you are completely committed to regulatory now. What was it about the role that clicked so quickly for you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely want to be in this career, for the rest of my professional life. I think what clicked within, the first maybe year or so as to why I wanted to do regulatory. I just feel like it's a lot of fun. I feel like you get to touch a lot of the very interesting aspects of the business. You get to interface with a lot of interesting people, the medical team, the business team, the scientists. So you kind of have a relationship with all of the other functions. It's not like you're siloed away just reading guidances all day. And so I feel like that and the fact that every day is kind of different really excites me about the regulatory field.
And that's exactly one of the things that a lot of people always say to me is I'm working almost at every stage of the drugs journey and I'm meeting everybody in the group and meeting everybody in the company. It's a real great way of actually understanding how do all these pieces fit together, whilst you get to understand what each group does whilst not necessarily being an expert in that area. Kind of avoids you going too deep into something, but it lets you touch a bit of everything. Kind of gives you the best of both worlds.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely feel that. Like, I like writing, but I don't want to do it all day, every day. So, like, that piece of it, I get to do a little bit of writing. I get to be in some meetings, but it's not like, I'm on investor calls all day or anything like that. So, just like you said, I feel like best of both, best of all worlds.
Hmm. And what part of the job surprised you the most, aside from the grey creativity side of it?
Ooh, what surprised me? So yeah, I guess that was kind of a big surprise. I think just the fact that every day really is different. It really depends on what you're working on. You never know what could pop up. I just kind of figured like, oh, maybe you're kind of preparing submissions, getting them submitted. But there's just so many nuances and situations that arise that allow you to develop new skills or think in new ways. I think that really
Hmm.
was new to me.
I think talking of new skills, but then acknowledging the transferability of many things. What skills from your computational biology background transferred into regulatory a lot better than you were expecting? Was it analytical thinking, scientific communication, anything around those sorts of areas?
I would definitely say that communication has been really helpful in my regulatory career. When I was in grad school, there weren't very many people in the computational biology department that were also doing wet lab, and I was one of the people that was. So in my day-to-day, I was, at the bench working on nematodes with
Hmm.
some computational activities. But when I would talk to, for example, like a journal club, or we would present our work periodically to the department, I would have to communicate some of those wet lab things to people that are only doing computational work and vice versa. So I feel like being able to craft those messages for the appropriate audience really does help me in my regulatory career. Sometimes I'll be talking to people in clinical operations that need information that's completely different from people that are in the lab if we're preparing some kind of submission.
Hmm. Uh, we're in a world now where what we think of as traditional pathways, and if you go into this, you can get to here. It constantly is being challenged and it's constantly being changed. And so I'm conscious that sometimes we hear advice saying, "Oh, if you want to do this, get into this," and it might not be as relevant anymore. From where you are right now, if a PhD student approached you tomorrow and said, "I think I want to get into regulatory affairs," what would you tell them to do first?
I think that the very best thing you can do is networking. This is a really tricky market
Agree.
in the whole biotech space, and it really is kind of about who you know, especially for those entry-level positions. I was able to get my first position through networking, somebody I knew from graduate school. So I think that is really important. So definitely put yourself out there. Don't, it can be really hard sometimes to get out of the lab and feel like, oh, if I go to this networking event, my experiments are going to fall behind. I definitely went through that, and it is tricky. But if you do want to leave academia for industry, I think really getting to know the people that are working in industry, what they do, is really important.
And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I generally believe that networking as much as possible, putting yourself out of your comfort zone is really the only way that people can get ahead now in this world where we've got these things that screen people out straight away, and we're kind of losing that face-to-face piece. And whilst remote work has so many benefits to quality of life, it does remove some of that face-to-face interaction people do have. And so when I speak to people who are saying, how do I get to here, or how do I get into it, I'm just always advising them, go to a networking event, meet people, say hello, and don't think it's also going to happen straight away. You never know when you might work with someone. It could be in 1 week, 1 month, or 5 years. But invest in those relationships. It genuinely will help you in the long run. And there's also no harm in work with people who have the same mindset as you. They might have different backgrounds, but you all have the same goal in mind.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really great advice, everything you said.
Um, I want to kind of look a little bit about what you said about it was quite a quick journey for you, and compared to some other people I have worked with, I will say you have progressed quite quickly but steadily as well. It hasn't come across as rushed when we spoke about it, and I want to look at some of the lessons you've learned in those first few years. And my first question to you is: when you first entered in regulatory, what was the steepest learning curve for you?
Yeah, I think something that was a little bit challenging when I started was just kind of managing, everything going on. There's a lot of meetings, a lot of activities that you're working on, compiling submissions, archiving submissions, staying up to date on the regulations. And so I think it was just kind of an overwhelm of like, oh my
The
goodness,
volume.
exactly. Yeah, definitely. One of the first activities that I started when I was a Reg Affairs associate, my first position, was we were moving from just kind of in-house document storage onto Viva RIM, which is the information management system. It's like an industry-specific database. And so my first kind of activity was to organize all that information, tag it with the appropriate metadata, and that was really helpful to just get a feel for what the documents look like, what sorts of things I would be working on in the future. So I think that really did help me kind of, just see everything laid out and kind of get a feel for, okay, what am I going to be doing here?
How long do you think it took you till you felt confident? When I go back to my first job in life sciences recruitment, it took me like a good year and a half until I felt like I had a grasp and a handle on it. I wouldn't say I ever got to a point where I felt like I was an expert. I'm definitely someone who subscribes to that you can always be a student, but it took me a while to feel confident. And I feel like with regulatory, and you have drug development, these regulations they're changing, and then you've got global regulations, and as you say, the volume of work and the cross-functional. Then was there a point? How long did it take you for you to go? I feel a bit more confident doing all this now. This is making more sense.
I feel like you did kind of that year and a half. I feel like I really
Hmm.
spent that first time just kind of building an awareness of what the job really was and definitely trying to learn as much as I could, say yes to taking on different activities, be in different meetings. But yeah, it really did take me probably that year to year and a half before I felt like, okay, I'm ready to, ask for more ownership of things.
And looking back at everything you have done, what experiences in particular do you feel accelerated your development the most? Was it agency interactions, the submission work, cross-functional exposure, or did having good managers and mentors play a larger role?
I would have to say it's the last one. Definitely managers and mentors. I think having people that can advocate for you and put your name forward, that is just so important to career development. I would say in any industry. We probably in my first role, my supervisor took an extended leave, and they trusted me enough to kind of take on some of those activities. And during that time, the company didn't, go up in flames. I kept everything moving, and that really showed me like, hey, I can do this. I don't need to go to my manager for every little question. I can figure things out. I can problem solve on my own. And if I make a mistake, there's people around me that will who can help me fix it, like
Mhm.
speak up about it, that kind of thing. So yeah, I would definitely say finding that mentor or manager that really will advocate for you is key to career progression.
I definitely subscribe to the fact that you have good managers and you have good mentors, and sometimes it can't necessarily be both. I think people play a different aspect in your career development. For yourself, when it comes to say the more mentor side, Is that something you have to, for yourself in this instance, did you actively ask for mentorship? Was it something that was kind of embedded in the culture of the company, or was it more so someone took an interest and then extended that offer to you?
Yeah, I would say probably all of the above. My current company has a formal mentorship program, and so I am participating in that. I think it is, so valuable to meet with my mentor. We were talking about how you have like a pie of, at work activities, home activities, family, all that thing, but it's limited. But I feel like talking to my mentor like makes my pie bigger. It just gives me that energy. So I would definitely say if there is a formal mentorship program, definitely take advantage of that. I also did that in graduate school, taking advantage in those kind of mentorship positions. I think there was one that connected you to people in industry. So definitely take a look. I would advise if there are formal programs. And then if not, I think that's again where those networking activities come in. If you go to those and you really click with somebody, you say, "Hey, I'm really interested in regulatory." You never know. Maybe they could be a resource for you later on, or maybe have a coffee together and see what they do, and that could develop into more of a relationship.
You've worked across oncology and immunology, stroke inflammation, and something that I think is a people in the industry know but isn't necessarily highlighted is that you can work in one therapeutic area and move to another where I haven't worked there before. So, how transferable are regulatory skills between therapeutic areas? What changes and what stays the same?
Yeah, I would say that they are, fairly transferable. Um, Going from oncology to right now, I do monoclonal antibodies, so everything's under CEDAR. But I would imagine that moving to cell and gene therapy or something like that, there would be a bit of a learning curve. But I think if you've developed those regulatory muscles or even come from a scientific background, that could really help you to understand what the nuances are for that different type of therapeutic area. I've asked colleagues in things like radiopharmaceuticals, for example, that's quite a bit different, but they told me like, oh, I don't think that would be, out of the question for you to move into that space.
And what is the benefit of having worked in a therapeutic area before? Let's say, for example, you're at an oncology company now, and you join another oncology company. What is the actual benefit of having a depth of experience in one particular therapeutic area?
Yeah, I would say that kind of familiarity with that review division within FDA, kind of understanding some of the nuances, they're all a little different. And so understanding what they want to see in an application can really go a long way to avoiding RFIs, kind of expediting things. So yeah, I would say kind of, staying in the same therapeutic area does help you build a depth of knowledge that you can always refer back on. That may not be, as easy if you bounce around a lot.
Hmm. We've obviously highlighted that you have that computational biology background. And I noticed that you've actually done some speaking on AI's impact on drug development and regulatory affairs. And of course, it's the hot topic. There's lots of excitement and concern around AI right now. People don't know what differences there are, what an LLM is, and how these things work. And I think it'd be good to kind of lean on that background and kind of the thing you've spoke about and kind of dive a bit into it. So, my first question on this piece would be: how do you currently see AI being used in regulatory affairs?
Yeah, I feel like that is just such a hot topic. I've been to a couple networking events and it's just a key topic at every single one. It's very top of mind for people. As far as regulatory, I would say that there are some places where it could increase efficiency. My current organization does encourage us to use it, and so I've started to explore it as kind of like an advanced Google search. Um,
Hmm.
that's, I would say, typically what have been using it for. So I would say just the ability to compile information from just huge bodies of data is something that could really help the current regulatory professional instead of, digging through all the guidances, all the web pages from different health authorities, laws.
Hmm.
I think kind of compiling and summarizing is an area where AI can help us to move a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I'd say that is probably where most people use it. It is to get that large summary of data, information. I suppose the when we talk about what is real and what is hype, I feel like when let's say you don't know much about a topic and you get information, it seems like AI is a genius. When you actually know something about your topic and you get a response and you actually go, actually that doesn't make sense. That's not right. I feel like we're still in that realm right now. Obviously, these things rely on the data they have and their ability to summarize. So, as someone, as you said, you are using some summarization, do you have to like check it? Do you have to like go, that's not right? Do you have to like change it as you go, make it your own thing? Like how are you handling that piece of it? Because it's not perfect yet.
That is so true. And I love what you said about if you don't know something, you're like, oh, wow, this is great, like great information.
Exactly.
But if you know, you're like, that doesn't make sense. I love that. That's funny. But yes, I 100% feel the same way. I was speaking to a colleague that said that AI can be confidently wrong, which is
Yes.
so true. You read something and it's like, oh, this, model believes this wholeheartedly, but it's like, oh, I know that's not true. And I've definitely run into situations where it spit out the wrong information, and then you
Hmm.
correct it, and it's like, oh, sorry about that. Here's the right answer. So you absolutely do have to double check, make sure that, I mean, at the end of the day, you're accountable for what you provide. And if that comes from an AI and it's wrong, well, that's still on you. So we've been kind of coached to treat it like a very eager intern. Of
Hmm.
course, you want to, believe them, they're learning, but at the end of the day, you do want to verify what comes out of it.
Trust but verify.
Exactly.
Um, what tasks do you think AI will genuinely help regs people with?
I think back to what I was saying about that kind of compilation of just massive amounts of information and data into a succinct summary. I think that will be helpful. I use it. I'm still a little wary of it though. I'm not like all
Hmm.
in on the AI, but yeah, I think it will expedite some of those more administrative tasks, if you will, and then the summarization will be helpful too.
What aspects of regulatory affairs do you think will remain fundamentally human?
I would have to say decision making. I think we've got to keep a human in the loop because, I mean, at the end of the day, we're developing drugs that go into patients' bodies. I mean, you can't outsource all of that, I would say, to a machine without some kind of human verification of the data. So I would say definitely the decision making. I think like I was saying, it can be wrong, and so kind of checking its work, going through verifying. I think, humans are going to have to be hand in hand with it if we continue down this path.
Hmm. Something I've said to some other people who are friends and on the phone with some other people is that my belief is that drug development is a human endeavor. Okay, it's humans who are putting together everything we've learned for all of our history and put our best minds together to make products and drugs and compounds to treat and help other humans. To keep it ethically and morally sound, I think you have to have that human element in it. I think the second you try to automate one entire section of that process, you walk into some ethical concerns. And as you say, you can't hold code responsible for if something goes wrong. And what you said there is spot on. I generally think that the human piece will always remain influential and integral to the process. And I personally can't foresee a time where some large aspect of this programs, softwares will take over a part of drug development. I just can't see how we could ethically and morally do that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Well said.
Um, I wanted to, again, highlight from your background as a scientist, do you think scientists and regulatory professionals view AI differently? Because obviously, how AI is being used in the lab, and if we just move past LLMs, we actually like the drug discovery AIs, the ones that are doing loads of virtual trials, animal trials. consistently using vast amounts of data. I imagine scientists and people like yourself now in regulatory have very different views on AI. Um, where do you think that bridge is? You think scientists are more optimistic and regs people more realistic? Do regs people have a better understanding of limitations, or the scientists do? What's the crossover in those two bits there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I feel like maybe the scientists probably have been using the technology a lot more than, or, for longer than regulatory professionals, just kind of the nature of data analysis that goes on in the lab. So maybe more of a familiarity there with it. But I also have to think about things like all the automation and kind of those, like the closed loop science where the AI thinks of the experiment and then it sends it to robots, and the robots do the experiment, and then the AI analyzes it. I would be so curious to know what scientists do think about that. Obviously, in regulatory, I don't know that we're going to have any like robots doing our jobs. It'll probably all be, the AI. But yeah, I'm not sure what the differences there would be as far as how they think about it differently, but in the science side they probably have a couple more years of experience with it. But yeah, I think both probably could see where there could be benefits, but also are a little wary of some aspects of it too.
And if someone again is entering regulatory today, what skills on that side would you encourage them to develop alongside their traditional regulatory knowledge, aside from just networking, obviously?
Yeah, I would say definitely communication, both written and spoken, I think are really key to the regulatory field. And brushing up on those skills will help you not just in regulatory, but in any position. But I would say that communication, clear, concise, um, targeted to the right audience is just really important to regulatory.
We are actually towards the end of the interview. It's gone quite quickly. I do want to finish on some quick fire questions for you. Um, First one's going to be what career advice do you wish you had received earlier?
Yeah, I guess if I were to think back what could have been helpful earlier, I think maybe it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to explore different opportunities. Your career is really your own. It's not your parents or your PIs, your bosses. And I think just knowing that it's okay to look outside of maybe a box that even you have put yourself in could be really helpful. I went through my entire schooling thinking I wanted to be a veterinarian. And so when I was like, oh, I don't know about this anymore, I think it was really hard for me to feel like, oh, am I letting my past self down by switching tracks? And I think just having the knowledge that, like, hey, it's okay, it's not set in stone. Maybe I'll go back to vet school one day. Like, who knows? I think that would have been really helpful to know early on.
If we had this conversation again in 10 years' time, what do you think will have changed the most in regulatory affairs?
I definitely think it probably would go back to that AI question, that topic that we talked about. I think it really is changing a lot in the biotech field. Hopefully, I still have a job um, with all the AI advances. But I mean, these things change and evolve so quickly. I was talking to a colleague who said that, oh, this model wasn't so great until 2 weeks ago they made a change and now it's the
Mm-hmm.
best. So I think it can be really hard to predict with just how fast these AI models are evolving. But I do think that in, several years' time, it'll really change the way we do our jobs.
Especially because if you look at the innovation curve as well, as we've got new technology out here, and we think, oh, this is a great big leap, and but then the next leap comes a bit quicker, and then a bit quicker. And I think ever since OpenAI and ChatGPT and all these others started to where it is now, it's happened so quickly. I almost can't understand how it happened so quickly. And I feel like that same thing is going to happen in regulatory. What is being useful today will just seem old fashioned in maybe a year's time. It will be something so new and advanced at some point. And yeah, who knows what it's actually going to look like. I think it will be one of the big impacts as well. Um, my last question is what part of working in regulatory affairs do you personally enjoy the most?
I would say probably out of everything, I love getting requests for information. I don't know if that makes me like, wild or anything, but it is really fun to me. I think, it can be stressful, but I think it's an opportunity to really get all of the super smart people in the company together and really problem solve. I think it's a very energetic time when we get that. Which basically, to explain what that is, if you have your submission, your application, if the health authority has questions, it comes in the form of requests for information. And some of the turnaround times are really short. Sometimes it's 48 hours. And so I think just that energy is really exciting to me. I love to get all the people together, come up with responses, and I've had some real successes in, gently pushing back or things like that, making your development program what you want it to be and getting the agency to understand your point of view.
Fantastic. Jessica, that is the end of the episode. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. It's been a pleasure to have you today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had a great time. I really appreciate you having me on.
If anybody has any questions on anything we've covered today, feel free to connect with either myself or Jessica on LinkedIn. This we post on the usual platforms, and feel free to comment and engage there. But for now, we'll see you on the next one.